Step into the world of Founders Dinner. Stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Where the essence of entrepreneurship is unraveled in its most authentic form. Stas Balanevsky serves as your guide on this journey of discovery and inspiration. In each episode, Stas brings together entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds to share their stories. It's not just about their victories, but more about the resilience and adaptability they've shown in the face of adversity. These narratives are more than just stories. They are lessons in courage, determination, and the relentless pursuit of success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, dreaming of launching your first venture, or an established business leader seeking new perspectives, Founders Dinner is your invitation to explore the transformative power of entrepreneurship. And now, without further ado, let's welcome the host of Founders Dinner, Stas Balanevsky.
So welcome to the Founders Dinner podcast. I'm your host, Stas Balanevsky, and I have the pleasure of having Mike Wright as my guest today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm wonderful. I'm excited to be here. A little nervous because I think we're going to dive into some things that are hard, but I think it's going to be great. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. So let me start you with question one.
Go for it.
Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey. Where'd you start? Where are you? Where are you headed?
Okay. So I never intended to be an entrepreneur. It just happened. But I'm currently the CEO of ODL, which is an orthodontic laboratory. And our main goal is to inspire confidence in kids and adults across the world by helping them smile. So that's really the big initiative that we have going on right now. We're a second generation company. I work with my brother and my brother-in-law. I also the co-founder of a company called EasyRx, which is a prescription lab platform that allows doctors to send RXs to labs across the world. I'm starting a company to sell products to other laboratories. And I think the latest initiative too is we're starting a classical Catholic education school from K to 8, which doesn't exist in Buffalo. So that's the fun part. So there's a lot going on, but I bring it up because it's not necessarily like a journey that I intentionally do. I just have this desire to always do something. So that's like where the journey begins. And I guess to get a little bit into it, so I've been thinking a lot about where the drive comes from, where the desire comes from. And I just remember when I was a kid, I was a small kid. I'm like 5'6" now. I'm not a big dude. I weigh like 145 pounds, but I was even smaller then. So I always had this desire to try to keep up with everybody else. And it was really tough, but I just knew every day I'm going to have to work harder than that guy to play basketball better. I'm going to have to work harder just to keep up riding my bike than that guy over there. I was never the biggest, never the strongest, but I would always know that I just had this desire, not necessarily to win. I think a lot of people just have this. They're always talking, I'm an entrepreneur because I have to win. I just have a desire to keep up a lot of times. So I feel like as we go down this road, and when I read this question, that was the first thing is, where does this even come from? And I think I just always want to keep up, do something good, do something right, and then use the gifts and talents, the way that those gifts that God gave me and see what I can do with them. So for me, it's usually go big or go home with a lot of things. I don't know how any other way to do it. Otherwise, it gives me anxiety, like I'm not doing enough. So again, I'm married. I have 9 kids. So as you can tell, it is go big, go home. So all the same lady. So my wife is very similar too. So it's just funny, but I've always been very independent. I love to figure things out. I love to solve problems. And so that's where I think the journey started and where I'm at right now. And then where are we going? I don't know. And I've talked to you a lot about this too, Stas. And I've had other coaches that say, you have to plan out this, you have to plan out that. And I don't necessarily know where I'm going because a lot of times I'm just going to see if this door opens, walk through it. And if it closes, okay, great. I got to open up another door. If it opens and I walk through it and I can keep going, then great. That's the direction I'm going to go in. So I'm not much of a planner, but I see things come up and it's, hey, let's try this. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
That's the whole thing. The definition of you, you are a true visionary. You're one of the truest visionaries I've ever met. Because you don't do all of the planning. But the beauty of being a self-aware visionary is you understand that. And it's that self-awareness that's allowing you to surround yourself with people that are going to make that vision true.
Yeah, as I've gotten older, I've spent a lot of time just thinking about where I've come from, where Where do some of the demons that I struggle with come from? Just trying to be more introspective. And I always say to any CEO too, or anybody that's trying to build something, you do need to take some time and just think about, why do you make decisions, or how do you make decisions? And it's uncomfortable because I don't like to sit down for more than 3 seconds, and most visionaries don't either. But it's good to know why you make decisions the way that you do, and to build up that kind of emotional intelligence work that doesn't come naturally for a lot of us, especially me.
Yeah, but the work that you've been doing over the last 3.5, 4 years has been pretty amazing.
It's been fun, and it's been really hard. I'll say that. But thank you.
Yeah. It's story time. I want you to tell
Love
us
story time.
I want you to tell us a story, and not the typical visionary, I had an idea, I did a thing and it was successful kind of a story. I want the flip side of that. What I want to do is I want to find a story where there was a lesson inside. I want to talk about a misread, a stumble, a misstep, a wrong turn that you took on your entrepreneurial journey. I want you to grab that story in your head, and what I want to do is I want to hear the story. Let's talk about it. Then I want to talk about the lesson, right? Because every one of these mishaps has a lesson. After that, I want to talk about how you've applied the lesson.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So
yeah, let's do the hard work here. So I will talk from the beginning of my career, where my dad started the company, and I was the oldest of 7 kids, and he decided to go off on a couple of adventures, and I knew the business, and I never necessarily was like growing up saying, I can't wait to do orthodontics. At that point, it was like, I need to feed my family, and I need to figure out what I'm doing. And I know how to do this well with my hands, but I don't necessarily know how to run a business. So I wanted to start there a little bit, because I've been doing this for 25 years. So I have so many different lessons that I've learned along the way. But there was one specific thing that I really wanted to talk about, and it's more of a theme. And this, to anybody listening, this is going to be something you've all grappled with, and it's really tough. But for me, it's really not trusting my gut and learning what that is. So that's going to be the theme of this situation. But we had a whole bunch of employees that my dad hired. And here comes this kid coming into this business. I don't know anything about anything. And my dad says, look, I need you to run this business. And I'm like,
how old were you at the time?
I remember I was 27 at the time.
So your prefrontal cortex had been formed in the last 2 years.
Yeah, maybe the last 2 minutes. Okay. So, and you just don't know what you don't know, right? And I'm like, I'm excited. I'm going to do this. This is the next step in my career. I did go to business school, and I was like, yeah, I got this degree. I should know how to do stuff. And as I started to do this, I realized I didn't know how to do anything. I knew how stuff worked in a book, but relationships, how to work with employees, how to hire people, fire people, see writing on the wall and do something about it. I never knew what any of that really meant. What I knew is that it was incredibly difficult, and people do not like change. So when now I'm in charge of folks that my dad hired 20 years ago that helped build the business, the entire culture of the company just changed. And I thought that I could just will myself through it. I thought that I could just be a bulldozer and be like, you know what? I'm in charge. This is what I do. You need to respect my authority, and you need to do what I say. This all made sense to me. This is just what managers do. And little did I know that at that point, there was something that turned, and everybody just started to hate me. And I didn't get it. I totally didn't get it. But I will give them credit. They tried. They certainly tried. Eventually, I ended up having to let go the majority of the folks. They just couldn't work with me, and I couldn't work with them. And as I look back, there's just a lot of those times where I brought it onto myself. But in particular, I had this one gentleman, though, he had a very complicated job that he did. And I knew how to do it, but it was so hard to train. And I think I started to see like the guy's behavior change a little bit, where there were some inappropriate things that took place. There was just some workplace misbehaviors. There was just some belligerence that was there. And I would always continue to tell myself, I don't know how to train this. I don't know what to do. So I guess I'm just going to keep them, because the work's got to get out. I want to make sure that I get the work out to the doctors that we're working with. And this cycle started to spin, where I knew what necessarily had to happen, but I never made the move. And I never made the move because I was afraid. I was afraid of the change. I was afraid of having the conversations. I was afraid of managing it. Every time I would talk to the person, my voice would shake, and I couldn't muster the courage to be able to do what was necessary at that time. And I really wish I would have taken the opportunity to do it.
How long did that situation last?
Oh my goodness. This lasted for a long time. This lasted probably for up until right around COVID time, actually. Yeah. So
So you're talking 15 years.
it was, yeah, it happened for a long time. Yeah. This was going on for quite a long time. And eventually circumstances changed and things, I finally let the situation go. But even during the time that COVID was happening, and you could choose who you brought back during COVID. This was discussions where it's like, everybody's laid off. And it's like, all right, I think we need to figure out who we're going to bring back here. And because it was a complex situation, it was like, we need to bring this person back. And every time I would talk to people, the hard part is that I would ask the question and say, what are we going to do if we don't bring this person back? I don't know what else to do. So I think we need to. And he's been with the company for so long. And how can we not do this? So all of the noise enters your mind and you start to justify the bad behavior. And then all of a sudden you tolerate that bad behavior. And it got to a point where one thing led to another. And then we eventually had to let the person go. But it was it was like this theme that I would continue to get pounded with, which is the right thing to do. Your gut is going to it's going to tell you what's coming. And as a visionary, it's the one thing, like I have a lot of shortcomings, but we can see around corners at times. We can see what's coming next. And that's our job. That's what the companies pay us to do. And if you don't pull the trigger, especially when everybody says, no, you shouldn't do that, because they're either afraid or they're afraid of the consequences. It just has such a cascading effect across the organization that can be incredibly detrimental. And that's the hardest part about being in this role is we have to make decisions that aren't pretty because nobody understands them the way that you do. And of course, in hindsight, I wish I would have done it so long ago because the amount of damage that it's done it's costed a significant amount of money.
So let's price it out. Let's back in the napkin, figure out the cost of that mistake of not trusting your gut when you knew this person is not long for this company.
Yeah, I know that there are a lot of people have quit based on a person being around that. So that's the one thing you have to consider. I tell managers too, like when you're looking at a person, you can't look at them through your lens. That's the easy part. What you need to do is you need to look at that person through the lens of every person that's working with them, because that's who that person's affecting. And we hear stories all the time in groups that we're in. It's you let that person go that everybody can't stand, and you're so afraid that everybody's gonna walk out the door. And what ends up happening is they have a party and a parade because they've been waiting for you to take the lead, take the step, take the risk, and have what it takes to do what is necessary for the business. But again, I think a lot of that is just we get in our own heads. So yeah, there's certainly a heavy cost to it. I think that when somebody leaves, you have to turn that person around. You have the amount of management work that goes into that person, but you don't necessarily see the change. There's a ton of opportunity cost. The culture cost, I think, is enormous. I don't think that we can quantify that. But I just have to say that when we have an environment where it's really hard to hire people and maintain people, if you don't have the right people here, it's going to be even harder. So that was really a big deal. I wish I could put a number on it, but it's more than I wish I paid.
We'll leave it there without throwing a number on it, but suffice it to say, a whole lot.
Yes.
So rewind, right? So what the fact patterns, all of the stuff that made you not trust your gut, not make the move, the fear, the anxiety, did you have other people telling you like, we can't get rid of so-and-so because?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time because what you end up seeing is that when you bring up the topic, other people get afraid because the implications across the organization. What are we going to do then? What happens then? And all these questions start to pop into people's minds. And then you start to think, yeah, what are we going to do? Oh man, we're going to be screwed if we do that. And then all of a sudden you're on the bandwagon keeping the person. And you have to take the short-term pain for the long-term gain. That's just how it works. That's life.
It is.
And I think the part that I started to realize is that in business, you have to suffer if you want to be able to be successful. You have to take on the pain because it hurts. And I've had many sleepless nights. I've had many times where it's been incredibly painful, but sometimes you just have to make the decision and move on, knowing for the betterment of the company.
Talk to me about the emotional and the physical cues that you were getting, but were either ignoring or trumping with other data. Help the people that are listening now. They're like, there is a voice or a feeling or something in my head that is telling me I got to go east, and everybody in the company is telling me I got to go west.
And I can only say for myself, but what I noticed with me is I start to get a lot of anxiety. And I don't know where it comes from, probably because I have a lot of things coming at me, but I notice I start to shut down a little bit and my behavior starts to change. And I don't have the excitement that I normally do. So I'm a galvanizer if you look at Working Genius, and I'm also an optimist. So when I'm looking at something, I get excited. I know this is a place we have to go at. I can get people excited. But when I start to lose that joy and that zeal, for me, I know that something's wrong. And I usually have to sit back and say, all right, what decision am I not making? What am I afraid of? What am I running away from right now? And then a lot of it's pretty clear that something's broken. And that's where I have to, me personally, start to write things down. I have to talk to people about it. I have to start to unwind it and say, all right, what am I experiencing? Where's it coming from? And again, I just think that you have to have these introspective breaks to take so that you can see objectively what's happening, because we get in our own heads. And when we get in our own heads, we're toast. Because I know that from my personality, I go up and down constantly. I don't have a lot of steadiness at all. And I ride the wave and I ride those winds. But when we start to go down, I have to get myself out of it. And if I can't get myself out of it, I know that there's an issue and I have to explore it.
Wow. That's a tremendous amount of maturity.
Oh, it's hard. I've hit a lot of walls.
That's right.
There's been a lot of pain, because if you don't do it, you just have to embrace for the difficulty. So I'm trying to figure out ways to get out of that pain quicker, because it's a very lonely place when you feel like you don't have anywhere to go, or you feel trapped a lot of times. And it's just it's a very difficult place. And I know, and a lot of people are going to experience that. What you have to do is try to figure out how to lessen the time that happens. And I think that's the lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tell me about that lesson. So you're trying to cut down on the frequency, right? The amplitude is going to be the amplitude in your life as a visionary, right? You're going to smash into the ceiling and smash into the parking lot because that's just how you're built.
Right. That's exactly right.
If we can cut that frequency down a little bit.
Yes.
Talk to me about that lesson. Talk to me about what you learned, what your tricks are when you do feel like something's rotten here and it's not right for me.
Okay, so I'll start with understanding the reality of being human, which is you can never ride a high forever, and it's going to crash and burn. It always does at some point, especially when you're driving as high as a visionary does. So what I've come to realize is that life is cyclical. It always cycles. Talk about any struggles that you have, just marriage in general. It is never always amazing. It is always cycling, and you're getting better at it. But I realized that you go through these times in life where I call it consolation versus desolation. You're going to go through life where it's great, and there's a lot of consolation you feel, and there's a lot of joy, and things are just working. And that's okay. And what I say is you have to remember that, because what ends up happening is life cycles again, and something gets in our way, and something happens, and we end up going through a cycle of desolation. And we have to remember that it's going to end. It's going to come to an end at some point, but we have to embrace it, and we can't fall too deep into it. Otherwise, you start to get depressed, and you start to lose a lot of the charism that gives you the highs. So again, getting through the desolation, I think, is really important by realizing that it's going to end and that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully it's not a freight train, but you have to know that you're going to go through these cycles. I think a lot of times people feel as if you're just on this linear path, right? And so you go on LinkedIn and you see these companies and they're getting this funding and they're crushing it, and they're now worth $80 billion and they're unicorns, and they just started from here and just went like that, and it was amazing. That is not true whatsoever. And I think from a founder's point of view or an entrepreneur's point of view, we have to be okay with the suck. We have to be okay that we're going to fall, but we also have to have the grit to get out of that ravine and then go higher than we were before. We just have to be okay with that and realize that this is life. And that's really hard. It's if you were to really hurt yourself and you're in a ton of pain, the last thing you want to hear is, oh yeah, it's going to go away. No, it's not. It hurts right now. This is what I'm experiencing. But you have to embrace the suck and then start to realize, hey, there is going to be an end to this. And I think I think it's a really big part of the entrepreneurial journey. If you can start to understand your own humanity, I think you have a chance.
That's awesome. So everyone that's listening, you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to get a seed round with a pre-money valuation at $500 million.
Right.
You can go get a chisel and a hammer and walk around and help people and grow and learn and succeed and fail and
I have to.
rinse and repeat. It's funny. We always say that in a 10-year cycle, you have you have 2 amazing years. You have 6 years that are all right, and 2 years that could put you under.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And rinse and repeat. And if you look at the world that we live in right now, there's lots of people that have not experienced a big downturn.
Right.
Right? Like they don't know what's coming.
Right.
And the companies that are able to adapt, the visionaries that are able to look at stuff and scrap their old ideas and grab new ideas because the old ones just don't work anymore, those are the ones that are going to succeed.
Those are your innovators. You're going to be surrounded by people who are going to tell you to do it a certain way. And keep in mind, those folks don't have anything at stake. They do, like they're working and they may have found their job. But as a founder or somebody who owns a company, you just have so much at stake that you really take that to heart. So when you're looking at your gut and do I do this, you really have to trust it, because other people are they're gonna put a bubble around their own safety, and they're gonna want to. And that's okay. And I totally understand that. But we have to be able to make those decisions that are hard, they're difficult, and other people aren't gonna like them. But at the same time, I don't know of any other way that a company can grow. Actually, I don't know how any organization can grow. And I think you see that just as a person running a family, running a business, just anything that has value, I think in this world is not something that's going to come easy. Otherwise, everybody else would be doing it.
Yeah, so true. So now that you have this awareness, now that when you hear that little voice and you feel that thing that makes you say, I need to go ask another question, I need to dig in deeper, I need to make a hard decision, I'd like you to tell me another story of when you heard that voice and you honored what that voice was saying, and you went ahead against the advice of other people. And I want to unpack that. I want to hear about the win when you said, you know what, I'm going to trust this.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about before, where it's like you don't want to share all the win stories, but I do have one win story that I think is awesome. And it has to do with EasyRx, which is a company that I built in early 2008, 2010. And this is right around, the internet was coming up, and I had this idea to be able to build this web-based platform that was going to solve it was actually only going to solve a problem for me, which was helping with billing our customers. Like that was the motivation, was to help me solve a problem, because my bookkeeper at the moment is terrible and I need to get rid of her. And I need to find a better solution. So this idea came as maybe I could create this web platform to be able to help doctors send digital prescriptions to the laboratory and auto bill it. And it was this magical idea. So this is going to solve all my problems, right? And everybody I talked to, as we were starting to go through it, was like, there's no way we can build that. You're not going to have enough people that are going to use this. People love paper at the time because the medical industry, the dental industry is all like 20 years in the past. It's super archaic. But every single day I got up and I said, I just have to start pounding this every single day. And even my dad was like the one guy that believed in me during this time. He ran the company, said, all right, I believe in you. I think we can do this. And it was like his voice that was like, you can do this. Like you have what it takes to be able to do this. And it was, if I didn't have him, I really feel like I just would have scrapped the whole project. But me and him just went at it for years and years. So yes, I had the excitement. I learned the lessons, but I still needed like a mentor to help me through it. And so as I started to think about the lesson is, yes, you have to continue to listen to your gut, but you also have to trust people to talk to that are going to have your back. And I think that's really huge because, again, it's lonely. And sometimes you might trust your gut, but realize that, yeah, I trust this, but it's going to create so much panic and chaos. I just am not going to do it. And you really need a lot of that support. So the lesson here for me was, go at it. You can turn it into something, work your rear end off, but make sure you have a sage that's by you to be able to give you the advice and the motivation, and just to know that you have what it takes to do it. Make sure that you have somebody in your corner that does that.
That's awesome. And you're one of the luckiest people I know, right? Like I know your dad. I've met your wife.
I am super blessed.
Yeah, your support network is really, really rock solid. And the people that are around you are with you, win or lose.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing because the whole world is a bit transactional. right?
It is.
Like,
So I had my dad, but the thing is, you have to intentionally find that person. And
right.
I've certainly had many conversations with you, and you've been very honest with me about certain things. I've had conversations with other coaches that I've had, and they're very honest with me. You just have to find that. The whole theme that we talk about is you just need to, it's that open and honesty. Those two words are so critical in everything that you do. Open and honest with yourself, open and honest with people you might be mentoring or people that are mentoring you. It's being able to have those real conversations and not doing it for any other reason. My dad did it because obviously he loved me as his kid, but you can find some really great people that love you as a person, and you want to make sure that you have them in your court. And sometimes their gut is telling them some things that you have to listen to as well, because your gut's not always right. Sometimes we trust to say that we always think it is, but just make sure that you're always discerning what works and what doesn't work and taking the time to think about it.
It's funny. I had a similar situation where my gut wasn't wrong, but my gut was incomplete. And very lucky to have a peer group. And these guys they laid into me. They're like, why are you making this decision? Why are you doing this? Why are you delaying? Why? And I finally, after I think the 15th why, I finally said, because I'm scared. And they said, okay, yep, that's great. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is seeing the fear and doing it anyway.
Right.
So go do the thing. I was, I don't want to. I'm still now I'm leaning into the fear, right? I'm like, I don't want to do it because I'm afraid. And they're like, a couple of choice words later, and you want to get me to do something? Make $100 bet. He did it. I'm like, all right, let's go. And
let's do it.
They were absolutely right.
Yes. And you need that. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's super lonely. It's when you're running a company, when you're taking a risk, no, you're just by yourself a lot of times and you don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah, that's why the title of this podcast, right? You've been to a couple of the actual in-person founders dinners.
Yes.
And it's one of the greatest things that I get to experience is I get a bunch of founders in the room, all of whom are my friends.
Right.
Maybe don't know each other. And all of a sudden, the conversations and the stories and the trust that is built right away is really a lot of fun.
Yeah. You find trust in chaos with other people that have gone through the same thing.
Trust in chaos. Well, I know we're going to need a podcast title for this episode, and I think Finding Trust in Chaos may be the title. Or
I like it.
Either that or Embrace the Suck. Embrace
the Suck. Yeah, I think there's a lot that we could unpack here. There's got to be something in there for it.
Oh my gosh. So absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for taking the time for talking to us. I know that this is going to help people. And I know, knowing you as well as I do, I know if one person is helped by this, you will consider that to be a huge victory.
Yeah, that's a win. That's an absolute win.
So if you're the one person that is helped by this, send Mike an email. Let him know.
Happy. Mike at odlortho.com. Come my way. I'm happy to talk to you about it.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Stas. It was wonderful.
Yeah, this concludes this week's episode of Founders Dinner Podcast. For those looking to connect with Mike, he just gave you his email. It'll all be in the notes and in the links in the description. And this is Stas Balanevsky signing off. See you all next week. And thank you so much.
Thanks again. Talk to you soon, bud.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Founders Dinner. Stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Once again, we've journeyed through the inspiring and challenging world of entrepreneurship with Stas Balanevsky, uncovering stories that illuminate the resilience and adaptability at the heart of success. Each narrative shared today is a testament to the unyielding spirit of our entrepreneurial guests, providing lessons in courage and determination. We hope these stories have not only entertained, but also inspired you. Whether you're taking the first steps in your entrepreneurial journey or are a seasoned leader in the business world, Founders Dinner is more than just a podcast. It's a community of learning, inspiration, and connection. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more insightful episodes and join our vibrant LinkedIn community to continue the conversation, share experiences, and connect with like-minded entrepreneurs. Until next time, keep embracing the entrepreneurial journey. This is Stas Balanevsky, thanking you for being a part of the Founders Dinner family. See you at the next dinner.